Good morning, Mike. How you doing? Happy Monday.
Hey, Steve. Happy Monday to you. How was your weekend?
Weekend was good, man. Weekend was good. How was yours?
Very good. Relaxing.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, I did a lot of nothing, which is good.
a lot of nothing. A lot of nothing's always good, man.
Yes,
Trust me,
absolutely.
I know how I behave, and at times I like to do a lot of nothing. But in the back of our conversation, Mike, we talked about, I don't want to go out. I don't go to the stores. I don't, we've been through this over the last few weeks. But yeah, I'm going to tell you a story. But first, obviously, let me, say hello to everybody who's watching, and please
Hello, everybody.
subscribe. Give us your comments, questions below. We will get to them. But yeah, thanks. So yeah, so getting back to the, I don't go out. I don't go to stores. Yesterday,
You went out?
on the back, I went out. I went to the
Whoa,
store.
whoa, this is big
I
news,
know.
folks. Breaking
I
news.
know. I know.
Steve has left the
Um,
building.
I know. So again, I went.
Tell
We
me.
go through the conversation we went through last week, right? And I've been thinking about. I have food here. I can, keep going, and I'm fine. But then there was a
Right.
few things that I kind of wanted, and I'm like, okay, so what's the right thing for me to do? Again, go back to what is that social responsibility, and how do we breach fear? How do we allow ourselves to engage and sort of overcome certain things? So I went to a store. I
Wow.
went. I think it was like 7:30 at night, so it was late. There was only a few people there, and I kind of figured that would be the case. Most people want to
Sure.
go in the mornings because that's whenever a lot of the fresh produce is going to be there. So I went in the evenings, and yeah, it worked out okay.
Good
We'll
for
we'll
you,
we'll
man.
s-
That's
we'll see
that's
over the
a
next 14 days if that was a good or bad decision,
it
But
was a I'm sure you're fine. I'm sure you're
I'm
fine.
sure. I'm sure.
Um but that's the key to this thing, I think, what you just did. And each
Hmm.
of us individually have to face it. And it's not easy for me. It's not easy for you. It's different for everybody, depending on their particular situation, their existing sense of vulnerability, right? I mean,
Hmm.
there's this unknown. We don't know exactly what this virus does to individuals. We have the general statistics with general trends. We know what the vulnerable groups are in some ways, but you always hear those outlier cases about the young, healthy athlete who succumbed. And it's just frightening. It's just absolutely terrifying. And the media loves to throw those at us for some reason. I don't know why, but I think it's the nature of the beast. Okay, they basically those stories are the ones that get the most attention. And while we were in this period, and we continue to be in this period of limited data and limited real information, and the doctors, the public health experts, the Dr. Burks, the Dr. Fauci's will say, yeah, it's most likely you guys like you and I are okay. And even if you have certain underlying conditions, it's not as it's a low risk, but we're doing the social distancing. We're doing the complete lockdown here to save the and protect the vulnerable folks. My parents, the folks we have locked down because they're close to 80 years old. We're doing that as a public service. But now we're making this discussion about, okay, let's begin to have this conversation about reopening the economy and re-entering the workplace. And what is that going to look like when each and every one of us has processed now 4 6 weeks of data, our news media we've consumed and have been impressed by this terrifying news. Our anxiety levels are through the roof, and then just stepping out of the house becomes a challenge emotionally, psychologically. So the fact that you did that was a great step. um, I don't think we're ever going to get to a place of zero cases, right? So tell me the process you walk through, because this is something that I think is essential. I think we need, as workplace leaders, to begin thinking about this. This is the area that there's two areas. There's the physical preparation of the built environment, the physical protocol, the physical space, and the protocols around that space, and what it looks like to put temperature checks in place and to do social distancing in a work environment and to have hand sanitizer and disinfecting protocols in place. And there's several other things we can do. There's this other piece, because facility management and corporate real estate is about the occupants of the facility. It's a people business. It's about the psychological and emotional safety of the people in the workplace. It's a culture question. And we have a chance as workplace leaders to have an influence on that. So that's what I want to talk about in the coming days and weeks is we really need to prepare people, because there are folks like you and folks like my family members I talked to over the weekend who are just going to have a real hard time re-entering the public spaces because the damage is done. I mean, we've got this impression that there's a virus on every surface and death is around the corner. So talk me through that decision. Was it you I think had a moment last week and of a
I think we've lost each other. I'm not sure where you are, but what I'll do is I'll sort of take your question where I think you were going with this, Mike. And yes, did I have an epiphany last week? I did. I did as we sort of went back and forth about, should we go back to the workplace? And we started with, well, why should we go back to the workplace if I am as productive at home, right? And then we sort of evolved the conversation through the week. Do I have a social responsibility to go back to the office, even if I am more productive at home, because it helps the economy, it helps everybody else, and gives everyone else encouragement. And then with that, that's what played on my mind. And, I am probably, um, a week or two away from food. I've stock, but I wanted to sort of push myself. I wanted to get over, and I am one who likes to push through fear, but I have to do it in my own time. I have to do it my own my mental thought process, which can be elongated at times, but sometimes it can be impulsive. But this one, obviously, this was not an impulsive move, but there were certain foods that I've been craving. And I'm not going to say my chips and I'm not going to say my cookies. It's not about that. It's things like avocados, eggs, things like that that I really miss that are part of my diet on a daily basis that
right.
I was missing and that I was longing for. And I thought, well, how do I get to these things? And that was really where it came from. It really was okay. There's things that I want, and there's ways I can get it. Well, what if I push through this fear? What if I took a step forward? I'm going to do what I can to protect myself. I wore gloves. I wore my mask. I chose a time of day when I knew I wouldn't be. The likelihood of bumping into other people was low. Ironically, there was probably three or four other people in the store, and I didn't see anybody until we got into one aisle, and three or four people were in that one aisle.
Uh
And it was
oh.
kind of one of those moments where everyone looked at each other and go, well, what do we do here? How does this work?
Yep. Yep.
But it was kind of one of those moments, and we all had a little giggle about, okay, let's move around and let's do our thing. We've all got our masks on, so everyone should be fine, obviously.
Good.
And then going through and just bagging things up, so taking my own bags to the store, with the gloves, and then wearing that coming home, and then going through, okay, so that how do I empty these things at home, wash my hands before, after, all the rest of it. So it was a really good experience for me to push through. And yes, I'm sure there are people who are watching me going, this guy's an idiot. Seriously, this is what your fear factor is, to go over and do it. And that's I totally understand that, right? But I do believe that there's other people who probably are going through the same thought process that I'm going through,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
Absolutely.
really interesting. But it all came from our conversation, right? What do we as individuals have to do? What should we be doing to help those that, there are people in that store who are working, right? And we're fortunate in the sense of, at times we call this an experiment. For other people, it isn't an experiment. It really is real life to them. They're
For
in this
sure.
store. This is what they need to do to be feeding their families. And therefore, by me going and actually doing my contribution and taking part in this, that actually that does help. I'm very fortunate with the circumstances that I find myself in. So yeah, so those were the various things that were playing on my head of the weekend, and it was a long thought process. But when I decided to do it, I was like, okay, I made the decision, and then I was gone, and I just went and I just did it so that I could then get through it. But yeah,
Well,
so
good
there
for
you go.
you.
I was waiting to tell you because I know you went through the same thing last weekend at Home Depot. So it was it was
Yeah,
it
and
was good.
absolutely, and it's there's so many factors playing and so many things in my mind. So, were you thinking about the the broader economy and those you mentioned them briefly? That there's folks that need us to be out buying things. There are, this is why I've been ordering out. I ordered out over again this weekend, and I'll tell you what, shout outs to Uber Eats and to local restaurants that have really kind of perfected this delivery model that was not really that much of a thing, and never for me anyway. I know Uber Eats was around before the pandemic, but I was not one to order out from a local sandwich shop. I just would go there and we'd have our lunch. So we've done it now several times. We've found ways to support as best we can the local economy. We do the same procedures and protocols and protective, removing it from the packaging and getting it in the oven and things like that, so we can protect ourselves. And it was nerve wracking the first couple times, just like it is nerve wracking for you going to the grocery store. It's still now that the FDA over the weekend or late last week put out a revised information saying it's not necessary to wipe down your groceries. You can if you want to, if it makes you feel better, but we really don't think it's necessary. Well, they've already told us, this is a good example. They've already told us that was something that was necessary because the virus lives on surfaces for up to hours or days even. And you can't. So here's what frustrates me, Steve. So mixed messages, misinformation, disinformation, the the lack of information, and this is going way back. I'm so glad we're recording these because way back in the beginning, what was my big thing? What happens when there's limited data or no data? We fill in the blank with negativity. We fill in the blank with the worst case scenario. So, and I'm not pointing fingers, I'm not blaming a particular, necessarily a particular news outlet or a political leader, but I was so desperate for someone to cast a vision, at least tell us, we don't have the data yet, but I'm looking for this piece of data, this piece of data, and this piece of data. So when we have this information, we can then make these choices. Here's the vision. Here's what we're looking for. And I've seen signs of hope. I've seen a little of that here and there. But now, even with this argument going on, which is becoming this big misunderstanding, I'll call it a national distrust or national media, misdirection. I don't know what it is. Depending on what news outlet you hear, depending on how they feel about politics and the current administration and how the local governors are looking at things, instead of coming together and saying, here's what we know, here are the facts, this is what the doctors and the public health experts have told us, here's what our goal is to reopen the economy to help those people most in need who are desperate. Here's how we're going to work together to get there. Instead of that, it seems like there's this either one side or the other, either open tomorrow or you're killing people because the economy is in the tank. So I'm desperate for nuanced communication and information because so many people don't dive deep like you and I do. And I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I wanted to see where you stand on it, because when it comes to making decisions and helping our colleagues, our coworkers, our employees at the workplace be in a mentally prepared place to engage again at the workplace in public, the new normal, all those things are coming into somewhat of a focus. It's not going to be back to normal again. It's going to be this gradual reopening. It's going to be this gradual get yourself ready, going back into the grocery store or the workplace. Are you getting the same mixed messages that I'm seeing? Does it frustrate you at all? Is that something that comes to mind as you're watching the media present these arguments?
Yeah, and absolutely, I see it, I hear it, and even some of the statistics that are thrown out there are often done to disguise or highlight something, right? But there are many governors who are out there who are making decisions, and they'll again we go back and we trust that they're making it for the right reasons, that there's not other external motivating factors that are playing into it, but actually it's science and data that they're using to open these things. But even once they open a state, individuals have the ability to make a decision for themselves.
Right.
So even if they open, there will be those that want to get back to work, that want to go and open a business, who will be able to do so. Then their customers then have the ability to make a decision themselves on, okay, so what is it I want to do? How do I feel comfortable? Where do I feel more comfortable? Can I then, and do I want to go and actually go to that deli, go to that supermarket, go to that cafe, whatever that is, that restaurant, whatever it is, right? So I can make
Joe's
that personal
Cafe.
decision.
I'm
Joe's Cafe. Yeah,
waiting to go to
yeah,
Joe's
yeah.
Cafe.
I can't wait to go to Joe's Cafe. But in essence, so even if they're open, the beaches are open, we all have a personal decision to make. And if people make a personal decision to go and there are other folks on there, well, they're deciding then to get out of the car, walk onto the beach that is populated. But that's their decision, right? And we operate in a society where people can have it. Now, that's obviously one view. The alternative view is, okay, we keep everyone locked up and people continue in with shutdown or pause, call it what you want, but people can actually do that. And again, it's what's the driving force behind it? Is it data? Is it science? And it's, it is something that goes through. And again, these are just sobering moments where we get the opportunity, especially on weekends. I don't know about you, but you get the opportunity to play these thoughts through your head because we can decompress and
Right.
we can take the time. But then what does that mean for the workplace? And I think we have to consider, and I think each company has to consider who actually wants to go into the office. There will be those that want to go into the office. There will be those that probably need to go into the office for one reason or another. So, who are those folks? And then, how do we ensure that they feel safe, they feel secure, and, one of the things that keeps going through my head is, okay, so what are the tactical things I need to be doing, or the team needs to be doing, or we as workplace leaders need to be doing to ensure employees feel safe, right? That's partner with our HR partners, partner with our CIT folks, partner obviously with our landlords, and how do we ensure that there is standardization of landlords, standardization of a lobby. You walk in and there is consistent phases. So we all know what we're going through, right?
Right.
And how do we do it? A lot of tactical things, right? Each building is unique, each floor plan is unique. How do we tactically allow employees to walk through that? And then obviously then we're thinking more long term. What is the real estate strategy? How does technology come into play? How do we allow our employees to feel safer, right? So we've talked a little bit about what iOS and our Apple and Google are working on in the Bluetooth and contract tracing and so on and so forth. Well, are those things that landlords can provide to their tenants? Is that things that companies can provide to their employees? How does touching things get eliminated? To go and make your cup of coffee in the office, do you now use your cell phone? Do you voice? How are those things going to work? And sort of running through that. But then also from a real estate strategy, do we need to be in big cities? Do we want to be in big cities? Do we want to be in big offices? Do our employees want to travel from the suburbs into the city environments, or do we have to rethink our actual strategy for those? So those are sort of the things that I've been pondering. A lot of this comes from conversations with other people, conversations
Right.
that you and I are having,
Yep.
conversations with peers, thought leaders, and just then taking the weekend to mull over. So, yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know if I
the
answered your
rush of
question
thoughts from the
entirely.
weekend. It did. It did.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
reminded me again, thank you so much, because we've mentioned this before. And for those of you first watching us today, we've had so many conversations in the past that talk about, there are really two separate discussions: the reopening of the economy in a public sense, reopening restaurants and places of business where we can get people back to work who have been sitting on the sidelines, that those 22 million now that are unemployed. That's one conversation. And then there's a separate conversation around workplace and knowledge workers specifically, because what you and I talk about mostly on this platform and my podcast and so forth is the information age, corporate real estate, the workplace where it's a physical setting in their strategies around that. And not everybody, and we've learned, obviously many of us continue to work very well from home, although adjustments have been required for many. But there's that conversation. And then even as we do reopen the economy over the coming months, here we are mid-April, as we get into the summer, I can see, and I've seen this reflected in polls, and you've seen it as well in research, is that just because the office is reopened doesn't mean everybody will go back or needs to go back. And we've going to think there's a lot of corporate workplace strategies that are adjusted going forward, because we've realized that, hey, I didn't know that group could go and work from home effectively, and now they can. So let's readjust, and then that'll trickle down, in our real estate, and other strategies will be affected by it. So two conversations, and I'm excited because the conversation about flexibility and in workplace, and the well-being and the emotional safety of our employee base is going to require that understanding that each individual processes differently and each individual has different needs. That was always the case, right? We always had that flexible work, agile work, different strategies in the past to help someone who has different needs with children and other requirements, that we wanted to give them that flexibility to make them feel valued and have the best experience in the workplace. Well, this COVID-19 situation, for the next year and a half, while it's going to be a looming new reality for us, it's going to be something we need to address. And there goes the voice again, Steve. The frog is back.
Frog's back. Frog's back. I know
Maybe I should do
that's the
my
beauty.
Yoda. My Yoda, while I'm got the gravelly, I'll go, many, many. I can't even do Yoda now. I've lost my Yoda voice.
My goodness, people will not believe that we did witness live. Mike Petrusky actually lost the Yoda voice. People won't believe me, Mike, but it's recorded, I guess. So
It is. It's out there. It
we'll
lives
get
on.
that. We'll get that. Yeah, maybe we should do a clip and show people that the moment it happened live on YouTube
Yeah.
with you and
There's
I.
no hiding
So
things in this
there's
new
no hiding
world.
things. Yeah. So I mean,
So go ahead. I talked a
no,
lot there, but I'm excited about this coming week because I'm going to have those conversations. I'm going to have the conversation with Kay Sargent of HOK, great workplace strategist, thought leader in our industry. From the, she's been talking about this for years, and she has a lot to say. I'm sure I haven't really had a chance to dive deep with her since the pandemic situation took over. So she's going to be a guest on my live stream this Wednesday, noon Eastern time. Go to workplaceinnovator.com to find out more. But I'm excited to ask Kay all these questions, and it's going to be a full hour with Kay, and it's going to be an exciting time. And then Thursday this week, I've got Rex Miller doing a webinar on workplace well-being and managing stress and humanizing the workplace on Thursday this week. So lots of great conversations around those two things, the practical side, protocols, what's it going to look like strategy wise, design wise, with Kay, and then this human side, the well-being and the stress, managing stress and helping individuals meet those needs on Thursday with Rex. So I'm excited about both. This is going to be a good week.
I'm sure, man. I'm sure. I look forward to hearing it, and obviously the bandwidth permits, I will certainly tune in. There should be a lot of takeaways from there, and also the questions. What are the questions that they're getting? And I think they'll be very different for both. So there'll be really good things
You have
for us
any questions? You
on.
should be thinking about those the next couple of days. If you got
No, I certainly will. I certainly will.
question for me to ask. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who do you
Yeah.
have on your agenda at Open Sourced Workplace? Do you have any? You've done some recent interviews that I know haven't been published yet, and maybe there's spoiler alert. Can you share anything
No, absolutely.
anything that you've been hearing?
No, absolutely. I'm happy to. And what I'm trying to do is sort of build up a team where we do weekly 10-minute interviews, so that the same team gets to respond and update and talk about the narrative that people is talking about, right? So last week, the question was, well, when do we start going back to work? Who should be going back to work? What do we need to do? So the folks that I've been sort of dealing with and having conversations with are people who are in the neuroscience, sports fitness and mental fitness, sustainability, change management, legal folks. So from a leasing and from a general contractor, legal documents, and what sort of things are coming from there. So different gambits, obviously brokers. So how are they dealing with this? The expectation probably was, well, what does the broker do now that no one can actually go and physically see space? What are they supposed to do? But I know they're busier than ever because everyone's running all these different scenario planning, and they are just so busy. So yeah, what I'm trying to do is bring together a gathering of people, a gathering of minds, and trying to provide short updates and short insights from those folks and what actually they're seeing and what they're feeling. And obviously these folks are in different geographies, so we get to see how each individual, state, country, city is evaluating those things. So yeah, so that's what we're trying to do with Open Source Workplace. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, and that's one of the epiphanies I had over the weekend is, what am I good at? What is Workplace Innovator? What is our purpose? What is my purpose? Because I'm not.
Wow, that must have been a long conversation, man. Or maybe it was a short one. I don't know.
It's very short. It's like, dude, you shouldn't be doing this at all. You really have no expertise, which is true. I'm just the goofball who likes to ask questions. But your background's different than my background. You come from a corporate real estate and a finance perspective. You've got the numbers going in your mind. I'm the complete opposite. I'm more the, English was supposed to be my major, but the verbal on the SAT was a lot higher than the math on the SAT. So I could talk, and fill in a lot of time with nonsense. But when it comes to the real numbers, but then it's funny because I say I'm a data guy, so I want to see the numbers, but I want someone to tell me what the numbers mean. Yeah. But I think my role, if they're is one. I'm still figuring this out, but it's that communicating. I guess I've always known this. My strength is to kind of strip away a lot of the facade and the feeling that people have to put on their persona where they know all the answers, and none of us do. And I think that the minute, and then I think this experience, this pandemic experience, this being on Zoom, that this idea that we have to put ourselves out there, and not everybody has their act together. We're all worried, we're all anxious, we're all dealing with similar concerns, the lack of information. We're all in the same boat in many ways. So yes, we need to lean on experts, and that's what I think I do well, is I gather experts who can share their opinions, their understanding. I definitely think that we need to trust the data, trust science, trust the experts when it comes to public health, when it comes to workplace strategy. But then in a lot of these things, as it becomes a more nuanced conversation, there's no exact. It's not a black and white issue. It's a lot of gray, and then how do we as human beings navigate those difficult waters? Well, I think the big thing, and we'll talk about it in the coming days, I'm sure, is communication. I think that's the biggest thing we have going for us, is this: we have the tools of communication. Let's use them. Let's
Hmm.
make sure everybody knows, and give people the opportunity to share what they're missing. What information do they need to make these decisions about going to the grocery store, going back to Joe's Cafe, going back to the workplace?
Yeah.
That's what I want to think. That's what I want to focus on. That's what I think my role here is to ask those questions, not just, you know, throw out a bunch of information, but say, well, how, let's be practical. How can I do that while also worrying about this? Or how can people be expected to go back to the physical built environment without the
Yeah.
proper protocols in place? So, I mean,
Yeah.
what do you think your role is? What do you think your
So
expertise? Because we have different one. We have different,
yeah, no, no.
perspectives.
Yeah, I keep getting told off for saying no, no, no whenever you ask me something, and it's just that it's what we do in the UK. Maybe it's just me.
That's
I
yeah.
don't
That's
know.
a.
But
I've
anyway,
always think that was a British thing. Yeah.
no, no, I think it is. I think it is. But I keep getting told off for that. But anyway, we move on. But
Yes.
sort
Yes.
of.
Yes.
So
Say
what
yes. Yes.
is
Yes.
that? That's what I get told to say. So that's kind of funny. So when I think about, okay, what is my role? What is my responsibility? And obviously, there's two hats there, right? There's Nasdaq, the responsibility to Nasdaq, to my employees, to the leadership, and from that, then I also think I have a responsibility to take some of those thoughts, questions, and put them to other people who can help solve problems. So, how do I provide the issues or concerns or challenges that we see today and in the future and communicate those to the industry so that the industry can provide a better service and a better product for each organization? So I think I have a responsibility that way. The other responsibility with having this medium is to bring thought leaders and providing them with an opportunity, at no cost to them, just the time, to and ungated, to allow them to communicate and feel that they can say what they want and feel that they can communicate what they believe and how they think they can help and assist people, and ask the questions that come up in my world. And I think in doing that, I believe that other people in my situation or doing my role will likely have similar types of questions, and therefore by answering that one question, they're going to provide educational, actionable content for other people to take and use. So that's kind of where I see that the responsibility. It's twofold, and people often ask me, how does open source help me? And open source helps me so much do my job at Nasdaq so much better. The information that I get, the time with thought leaders, and yourself, whenever you do those interviews, the gold nuggets are the minutes before, well, usually the minutes after, because all the apprehension's gone out of the, whoever you're interviewing. You feel a lot more relaxed, and it becomes a lot, you know, a deeper conversation, because the points that are raised, you go into those a little bit more. So
Sure.
that's where I have. But then, because I have my role at Nasdaq, it allows me to hear the conversations. It allows me to hear the conversation with my peers internally, and externally, to bring to that. So, I mean, that's what I'm
Mm.
hoping. That's what I'm hoping.
Well, a
Thank you, man.
great job you do, Steve. Keep up the good
Uh,
work, you will. Yes.
Here, it's
oh
coming
dear.
back.
There you go. There
Yoda's
you
coming
go.
back.
There you go. There you go.
All right, man.
So, all right,
Have a
man.
great
Well,
day.
you too. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Talk to you
Take care.
tomorrow.
Look after yourself.